Saturday Showdown, the ultimate touchdown for your college football fix. Each week, we'll dive into the hottest games, standout players, and pivotal moments that define the season. Whether you're a diehard fan or just tuning in for the first time, we got all the stats, stories, and insights to keep you at the top of your game. So grab your favorite snack, get comfy. It's time to kick off another episode of Saturday Showdown.
Welcome back, college football fans. We are back at you with our Week 3 recap of Saturday Showdown. We will get into some very interesting matchups, games that went one way that should have went another, and teams that maybe leave a little bit of doubt into, are they as good as everybody kind of thought they were going to be going into the season? Right off the bat, is there any one particular game that sticks out to you from Week 3 on just maybe the results or what happened?
Kentucky got hosed. Kentucky got hosed out of a win. I feel like that should have. No one can convince me otherwise. I don't care what you show me. I know exactly what I saw. That dude caught the ball, lost control of it, tipped it in the air. It was an interception. It was returned for a pick six, and they called it back. They called it back and said it was an incomplete pass. Even if it was a complete pass and the ground it did cause, him to lose control, that'd still be a fumble. So I'm not really sure what happened there. All as I know is I think like half the population agrees. Even if they just hate Georgia, that's the reason why they're agreeing. I think anyone who was watching that, I think they know that was the wrong call. And Kentucky got hosed. So I'm not saying Georgia's not good, but maybe they're not as good as maybe like last year's Georgia team or recent teams that Georgia has had. I think everyone can agree that Georgia should have walked in and this should have been an absolute domination. I'm not saying everyone doesn't have a bad game or whatever, but to score 13 points and almost lose, that's kind of embarrassing. Happy for Georgia. They won, whatever. A win's a win no matter how you get it. But I would say with all the hype that's been building up around these guys, 13 points is embarrassing, and then to almost lose to Kentucky, this could have been one of the biggest upsets in recent years if the Kentucky would have pulled it off. So I don't know. I'm not saying Georgia's not good, but maybe they're not as good as we thought they were because there was a lot of issues.
Yeah, that's fair. You come into this game where Georgia's favored by 21.5, and you have an over-under of 44.5. And this was a game of field goals and defense with not much offense. You had Georgia, they only passed for 160 yards. Carson Beck, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Brock Vandagriff for Kentucky, 114 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Trevor Etienne, 79 yards rushing. Carson Beck had 18 yards rushing. On Kentucky's side, Sumo Kungbanye, 98 yards rushing, so almost gets to that 100-yard mark. But this was a game where Georgia is going to have to really bounce back and prove some people, wrong going into that. They get a bye week this week to kind of get back and refocus. But they have a tough test upcoming in 2 weeks against an Alabama squad that's out to prove, especially Kalen Board, what a great game that would be for him to, cut his teeth, if you will, and show everyone he's meant to be in the SEC by knocking off Georgia in his first matchup with Kirby Smart. So, but yeah, and on top of what you're saying about that interception that they overturned there, if you're Mark Stoops, how do you not go for a 4th down play with 3 minutes left in the game when you're only down by 1 against the number 1 team in the country? Like, what are you going to lose? You lost the game anyway. Why not risk it and roll the dice to go for it in what could be a monumental win for your program?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what his idea was. Maybe he was thinking, since his defense has played well so game and only gave up 13 points to like the best team in college football, and just an offense that goes in and puts up like 40 points a game, he's held them to 13. So maybe he was thinking, we've done it all game. Why can't we do it one more time? Maybe that was his thought process. I'm not sure. I could understand I would agree with his call if maybe there was like 7 minutes left in the game, like where you could, maybe give up a little bit of an extended drive if Georgia would go on a little bit of a run, right? But like you said, there was 3 minutes left. So, I mean, a couple first downs, and this game's basically over with, So I know we talked about it before we started the show, but I think that's definitely a call he's gonna live to regret. I think.
mean, if you look at it, to be fair, it was a 4th and 13 with 2:58 left. But I mean, if it's me, I'm rolling the dice. Like,
yeah, well, you have nothing to lose, right? I mean, like you said, you have nothing to lose. Why? 2 minutes and 58 seconds left. Like I said, has your defense been good against Georgia? All game, yeah, but it's less than 3 minutes left.
And they were almost at midfield. They were at the Kentucky 48.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah. I don't know. I couldn't tell you why he did that. I think if he could have that back, I think he probably goes for it. But I also don't want to say that was the worst call in the universe, because I don't know how I would react in a position like that. Like, you probably didn't think you were going to be in that spot in the first place, right? And then now you look at the scoreboard and you're like, dude, like, we're down 1 point to Georgia. Like, this is, so I don't know. Was it the wrong call? I think me and you can agree that it was. I think anybody else goes for it. I understand it's 4th and 13, but I mean, Georgia hasn't played well all game either.
I mean, it's easy to say that from sitting right here and not being in that situation, not being a coach. We say we would do this, but until you're under that pressure and you're actually there trying to make that decision in, 20, 30 seconds, it's one thing. But, you got number one Georgia on the ropes, down by 1. It's hard for me to imagine not being like, all right, guys, and even like maybe instilling in your team, be like, hey, I believe in you. Let's go out there and get this first down and give ourselves the chance to kick a game-winning field goal.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if Georgia's as good as we thought they were. But I know for a fact that if they play like this against Alabama or Texas, they're going to lose, because in this game they were, 1, the offense was miserable, could not get going. And 2, they were terrible on all fronts. They were a very undisciplined team. If you look at it, they only had 12 first downs the whole game. They were 5 of 13 on third downs. They were 0 of 0 on fourth down, so they didn't get a chance. I mean, the fourth downs weren't even close for them to be able to go for it. They only ran 54 plays. They punted 6 times. They had 9 penalties for 85 yards, and they only held the ball. They held the ball for less than 25 minutes. Kentucky had 23 first downs, were 9 of 16 on third down, ran 73 plays, punted 4 times, only had 4 penalties, and they held the ball almost 11 minutes more than what Georgia did. So, I mean, this was a very unusual, unorganized, scatterbrained Georgia team that we haven't seen in some time. It's been domination after domination every game. And the close games that we do see are usually against the better opponents. I'm not saying Kentucky's not a good football program, but I think this should have been like a gimme game again. But this has been a crazy year of college football, so I'm also not surprised that something like this has happened. But yes, to answer your question that you had originally asked me, in my eyes, the team that I would have to choose would be Georgia. For maybe they're not as good as maybe they're not as good as we think they are. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting next few weeks to watch what Georgia does. Do they rebound and kind of establish that, yeah, they had an off week, but, we're still the team to beat in a sense. But, I mean, you mentioned it, we've had a crazy college football season so far. And, I mean, week 3 got started early on Thursday, where you have Arizona State taken down to the wire by Texas State in a game where you'd think, Arizona State, the Power 4 school, going up against a small Texas State school. But no, Texas State was actually favored by 2.5 in this game, and they lost by 3. So, very accurate there. But, I mean, I think this is a big, even though they lost, a big game for Texas State to kind of show everyone, hey, we might be better than you're thinking. And, I mean, you look at the stats in this game, Texas State's a team that is going to put up some offense. Their quarterback, Jordan McLeod, 268 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. They had 2 different running backs. Ismaile Mahade with 68 yards. Jordan McLeod also ran for 45 on top of throwing for 268. And then you had their leading receiver catching 2 touchdowns with 75 yards. On the flip side of that, Arizona State, their quarterback not as great scoring there, 246, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But the guy that kind of carried this team, Cam Scatapo, their running back, 24 carries, 62 yards, but 2 touchdowns. Thoughts on this game?
Yeah, it was interesting. It was definitely a high flying game. And when you look at the total team stats, I mean, these guys were, obviously they were neck and neck. I'm not gonna lie to you, they were neck and neck. Texas had 400 total yards. Arizona State had 347. Passing yards was 268 to 246. Rushing yards, Texas had 132 to Arizona's 101. Texas State was averaging 5.3 yards a play. Arizona State was averaging 4.8. They both did very well on third down. Both were about the same on fourth down. They ran about the same total amount of plays. They punted about the same amount of times. They had the exact number of penalties. Penalty yards different a little bit. But again, our time possession was basically the same. But again, the one thing that gets teams, especially in close games like this, the one thing that will always lose you the game is turnovers. Arizona State had 1. Texas State had 3, an interception and 2 fumbles lost. And obviously, if you look at everything, right, everything is the exact same besides the turnover right there, the turnover factor right there. You had 3 turnovers to 1, and that'll – in a close game like that, whoever has the most turnovers is probably going to lose the game like 90% of the time, I would say. So, I mean, it was close, man. Texas State definitely had their they definitely gave Arizona a handful because they were landing on them. I mean, four touchdowns and 1 interception. I'll take that all day. If my quarterback wants to throw an interception but throw 4 touchdowns on top of that, I think I'm okay with that. So it was a good game. It really was.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, and you got to be feeling good if you're Texas State from the Sun Belt, giving a Big 12 team, Arizona State, even though, this is their first season in the Big 12, but, still a higher tier team, if you will, a run for their money and actually being favored in the game. Texas State's Coach Klein's got this program heading in the right direction. And, I think it just kind of echoes what we've said about this season so far. You had the big NIU upset last week, Texas State going toe-to-toe with a Power 4 conference opponent this week. I mean, it's hard to imagine what the rest of this college football season is going to hold for everybody.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting.
I was about to say other games, we talked about last week, not a ton of big-time matchups this week. You had a few rivalry games. You had Oregon taking down Oregon State 49-14. Kind of coming out after a disappointing week where they barely beat Idaho. They barely escaped Boise State the previous week. And then they come out and, put up 49 points on their rival. A great way to bounce back there. Let's take a minute and talk about Texas. 56-7 over UTSA. They jumped Georgia to number 1 in the polls this week. And they were without their guy, Quinn Ewers. And I don't think it matters. You don't have Quinn Ewers, it doesn't matter. The man that everybody has been waiting to see got the most game action he's had in a while. Arch Manning, the next, coming of the Manning family, came in and showed out. 9 of 12 for 223 yards and 4 touchdowns. So not half of your completed passes were for a touchdown. Not to mention, kid's got some wheels too. 3 rushes for 53 yards and a touchdown. It's like his dad said and his uncles, it looked like the speed skipped a generation, and it made its way down to Arch. But I mean, what a game for him.
Yeah, he played well. Now I don't want to thrive too much on him. Listen, they played UTSA. All right. I think any backup quarterback for a big name school like Texas, I think they're more than capable of coming in and handling business against a team like UTSA. Okay. I think they are. And Quinn, let's not, let's Ewers, all right, before he got hurt, before he had his little abdominal injury, because that's what it ended up being. He was 14-16 for 185 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have an interception. I mean, he wasn't playing bad either. He just took a really big hit. So, luckily, they said it was really bad at first, right? They said it was not looking good. I saw a report later last night that said it's not as bad as they thought it was. So he's not going to play this upcoming week. So Archie Manning will actually get his first start at QB for Texas. He will start a game from start to finish. But they said it's going to be week to week for Quinn, depending on how bad it is. But let me ask you a bigger question, right? So in my eyes, if Texas would play like a Georgia or something, right, I think a Quinn Ewers matters in that situation. I'm not saying Archie Manning couldn't get the job done, right? But having someone like Quinn, who's been in positions in big games like that, like the game against Alabama last year, the year before, whatever it was, where it was down to the wire. Having a guy like that in a big game against Georgia or just a big time game, I think that matters. But the question I want to ask you is since Quinn is week to week, right? That's his diagnosis right now. He's gonna 100% for sure he's missing this game. After this, he's week to week. If Archie Manning is in there and just laying it down, he's just laying it down and winning. Do you just let Quinn rest until you need him? Because the only problem I see is, what if you let him rest like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then Archie Manning goes 3-0 and 4-0, and then you come up against Georgia? Are you just going to throw Archie Manning out? You're just going to throw him out and put Quinn right back in if Archie's just out there dominating? That's the only kind of issue I would see arise, because I wouldn't think that'd be fair to Archie. But I mean, how do you feel? Do you think Quinn comes back and he's healthy? Do you right away? Or if Archie's playing well, do you keep him in until Cam and let him rest 100%?
Yeah, so I actually had this conversation at work today. You look at their upcoming schedule. Like we said, he's going to for sure be out this week. That's a smart play.
Mm-hmm.
Let Arch start. But to your point, you look at their upcoming schedule. You've got UL Monroe this week. Arch comes out, has a great game, like similar to what he did this week. You have Mississippi State the next week. They're not doing great this year. They just lost to Toledo this week. Maybe you want to be a little extra cautious with Quinn. Just give him an extra week because it is Mississippi State. They're struggling this year. You give Arch another game, he keeps it going. I find it very hard if I'm Sarkisian at Texas to pull a guy like Arch Manning that's playing well. You've got Quinn Ewers that's been there, earned the job. It's his job. But, I mean, it sucks that it was an injury that caused it. But I would roll with Manning until, if he has the hot hand, let him keep going. I mean, you've got 2 games. You got Louisiana Monroe and Mississippi State. Their next toughest game is going to be Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry game.
Oh, yeah, and that's always a good one. So,
but you've got 2 back-to-back tough games. You got that game, and then the following week, you've got Georgia. So that's a tough question, because I think but that's the easiest way to create a quarterback controversy. I mean, everybody's been wanting to see Arch Manning. Well, here he is. He jumps on the scene and just, yes, it was UTSA, but he just comes out and balls out. I find it tough benching a kid that is coming out and playing really well, even though you have an experienced seasoned starter, sitting there that is recovering from an injury.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. I think you have to ride the hot hand. I think Archie Manning is probably the real deal. I don't think you'd be playing at Texas if you weren't phenomenal. It's just kind of unfortunate that he's sitting the bench, that just kind of proves how well Texas's football team is and how well the culture is. I mean, if he's willing to sit, I'm sure he had a million other offers to start for a million other teams.
I was about to say, anywhere else he starts.
Here's what I will say, though. I think you do ride the hot hand, right, for Archie for the next 2 games. I would say Quinn probably sits out the Mississippi State game. The only way I could see him coming in is if they wanted to let him get a little bit of throws in, maybe like somewhere like late in the game, like if they're winning like 50-0, maybe let him come in and get, see how he's feeling. If I had to guess, they're probably going to start him in the Oklahoma game. It's his. I would say ride with the hot hand, but I'm going to say they're going to start Quinn in that game if he's healthy. But here's what I will say, right? Here's what I will say. If Archie comes out and balls 2 games in a row, right, even though they're going to be playing nobodies. I know Mississippi State's a team, but let's just be honest. Texas is probably going to go in there and take care of business, right? If Quinn comes in and starts messing around, I'm talking the first 3 offensive drives. If something doesn't get going in Oklahoma, right, you're sitting the bench.
I was about to say, plus if Oklahoma comes out and scores and you're down like 7-14-0,
you're down.
And he's struggling a little bit.
You're sitting.
Yeah,
you're sitting. You right now have the number 1 spot, which no one thought you were going to have over Georgia. Nobody. Nobody. And I would say right now it's yours to lose. Like Georgia's, like it was theirs to lose because nothing was going to take them out of number 1 except for what happened. Okay. And that they didn't even lose. It was a porous performance. The number 1 spot is now yours to lose. And that's everything. Number 1 spot is everything for college, right? Besides a national championship, you want to be known as the number 1 ranked team walking around, right? So I would say Archie's going to get his two starts in a row. He's going to go out and show out 2 games in a row. But I would say, and I don't care if it's the Oklahoma game. I don't care what game it is this season. If Archie Manning performs well in the 2 games that he's going to start and Quinn starts to struggle, you got to make the decision. And if Quinn is a respectable quarterback, which I'm sure he is, right, he should know that it's not personal, right? It's just
it's not my day.
We're trying to win a national championship. I don't care who's at the helm. I don't care who is under center. I want to win. That's all Texas wants. I want to win a national championship. So if you're playing bad, I have to do what I have to do, right, to make sure we get there. Is it Quinn's spot? 100%. But if you start underperforming, you're sitting.
I was about to say your leash, if you will, just got a lot shorter with how well he's performing. And like we said, it's a small sample size. We'll see what he does in a full start next week. Does he come in and just, continue that same performance, racks up another 4 or 5 touchdowns? He's like sitting there now just like, wow. But if you just take a look at Texas's schedule. They have a very easy schedule with the exception of Georgia coming up. They had Michigan week 2. Before the season, we thought that would be a tough game for them. Clearly, we've seen Michigan struggling, and it's not the normal Michigan. But you've got Mississippi State, or UL Monroe, Mississippi State, number 15 Oklahoma. We'll see if see how well Oklahoma does against Texas. They struggled against Houston a couple weeks ago. So you got number 2 Georgia coming to Texas, so it's in your house. After that, at Vanderbilt. Florida at home. They come to Arkansas. I'm not too excited about that game. You go to Kentucky, and then you finish the season at Texas A&M in a rivalry game.
It's not the easiest schedule in the universe.
You get by Georgia. There's not many challenging opponents after that game.
No, I'm not saying someone couldn't pop up. No one thought Kentucky was going to get that close to Georgia. So, but yes, if we have to look at it like we've looked at any other team. Yeah. The only other game that I see, because of the factor would be the last game of the year, just because it's, of the environment that's going to be surrounding that game. But after
100%.
Georgia, I don't see a lot of teams that are going to put up a huge fight against them. So,
yeah, I mean, after that Georgia game, if they win that game, I don't see how they're, don't have a direct shot to the playoffs and the national championship.
yeah, I mean, Texas is
that probably wins you the regular season SEC title.
If you beat Georgia, yes. Yeah, that is the only team standing in your way right now.
So, those conference winners get an automatic bid there. I mean, that Texas sets themselves up real well going into the rest of that season. So
yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what next week's going to hold for Texas. Like we said, they got ULM. Archie's going to get this start. ULM, nothing, crazy there. They're a team that struggled a little bit. I mean, the only thing there is the namesake of their quarterback that transferred from Oklahoma, General Booty. Other than that, it should be an easy game for Texas to go in there and take care of business. Other games that occurred last week, Bama rolls over Wisconsin like we kind of figured they would. They were 16.5-point favorite, won by 32. And Wisconsin's quarterback got knocked out. Tyler Van Dyke, he's going to miss the rest of the season, announced today. Milroe, 5 touchdowns for Alabama.
Yeah, you said what'd you say? You said 5 touchdowns for
3 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns for Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, listen, I said it last year. I mean, I know I wasn't on the show last year, but I said it last year just talking to Saf a bunch, talking to anybody that would listen. Jalen Milroe, if you can help him get figured out, the kid has so much athletic talent. It's actually ridiculous. I mean, just playing under Nick Saban is super hard, right? And playing another Caleb DeBoer is not going to be any better, right? But I mean, Nick Saban benched him 3 times last year, when he was a starter. But that was what Nick Saban did. If you didn't play well, going back to the whole Texas situation we just talked about, Nick Saban does not care who's under helm. He's there to win a national championship. He doesn't care about anybody else. He doesn't care about
not getting the job done. You're going to be riding the bench.
100. You're done. You're sitting. I mean, look what he did to Jalen Hurts in the national championship game. He brought in Tua Tagovailoa because Jalen Hurts was not playing well. And the national championship game, benched his quarterback who started every game to get him there. And he was not playing well, and he brought in the second-string quarterback. He does not care, guys. He does not care. He wants to win. So, Jalen Milroe has a lot of talent, man. I mean, this game shows it. I mean, there was so much athletic talent there. It's insane. But then you look at games like last week, right, where his talent isn't there, where he struggles, where he makes bad decisions. If you look at a lot of his games where he's gotten benched, or a lot of the games that he plays really bad, he holds the ball for so long, it's ridiculous. And a couple of games that I watched last year that it happened, really big in, games that Saban benched him, he would check down his first check down, right? He would look, drop back, check his first check down, and then run. That's all he wanted to do was just run. That's it. It was almost like he didn't have faith in his O-line or faith in his receivers to break loose and get open and create that space. He just wanted to run the football. Like there was no check down progression, looking at your 1, your 2, and your 3, and then your safety dump off, which is usually your running back or your tight end. There was none of that. It was literally check down number 1. That guy's not open. I'm running the ball. That's what it was. So if he can get past that, I mean, you see in this game, the kid has the ability. But I don't want to say that he's great. He's super inconsistent. He really is. But it's performances like this that if he can rack up, it's performances like this that if you can rack them up in a row, it'll win you a Heisman Trophy. It'll win you a national championship too.
Not to mention build that confidence going forward too. Think about the I think maybe he's playing better this year because you got to think maybe the phrase forged through the fire of dealing with being benched last year and having to earn that spot back and playing for Saban. And, that probably helped him become the quarterback that he is today. And it'll be interesting going forward as the competition level wraps up, like we just talked about. They got a bye week this week, 2 weeks' time. You get to play the number 2 team in the country, Georgia. And time to go out and show that you've really developed into more of a passer. Not saying don't use your legs, but can you actually go out there and command this offense and get your team the opportunity in the position to win the game?
Yeah, and hopefully, it'll be interesting to see what he can do too. Like I said, all the talent is there for the makings of a great quarterback, especially, when it comes to the NFL. He is everything the NFL is now. NFL is dual threat quarterbacks everywhere. But you got to be able to check down and be able to throw the football. So hopefully he can, like you said, build off that confidence and continue to make good decisions. So
yeah,
I do got
100%.
to ask you a question though. You had to know it was coming. You had to know this was coming. I've been waiting for this week specifically. Okay. Do you believe in Mizzou now?
That's still going to be a no from me.
I'm not a Mizzou fan. I just like pushing the button. So
I was about to say, you look at the game, they beat Boston College by 6 in a game where they struggled a little bit. Boston College is up there, but I don't think they're an adequate test, if you will. They made it a close game in Missouri, and that's by far not going to be the hardest game that Missouri has. Props to them. I think they're good enough to be ranked, but for me, sitting at 6, now 7 this week, just feels a little too high to me, in that they're riding, the success that they had last year into this season. Not saying that they're not a good team, but as far as where they're ranked right now, I don't see it. You've got 2 tough games starting conference play. This, you got Vanderbilt coming Vanderbilt coming to town this week, which they lost this week, unfortunately. But then you go on the road to Texas A&M, a tough environment at Kyle Field to play. So you go in that environment, you get the job done. Let's talk then. But then you still got number 4 Alabama. You still got Oklahoma to play. South Carolina doesn't seem like any pushover. They took LSU down to the wire there. So you still got some good games where you can come out and prove yourself, if you will. And I think that all starts with, don't overlook Vanderbilt. We've seen that they're not the Vanderbilt they have been over the previous few seasons where, they're an easy win for most SEC teams. Yes, unfortunately, they lost to Georgia State this week. And, I was really hoping we'd see an undefeated Vanderbilt going into this game, but we didn't get that. But then you got Texas A&M that they might have turned the corner a little bit with a different quarterback this week. They went down to Florida, won by 13 points, and their quarterback had a great showing. But, I'm not saying they're not a good team. I just don't think they're the number 7 team in the country.
I've asked it 3 times, guys, and I've got 3 no's.
There's no bias there at all.
None.
So
I did see some interesting news. Maybe you saw it. I saw it earlier today. Michigan is in such shambles, right? Because they struggled against Arizona, or was it Arkansas State?
Arkansas State.
Arkansas State. They struggled. They only won by 10 points, right? Michigan's awful. I love it. I love to watch the struggle, dude. God, I've been waiting for this. Warren, their starting QB that they named, finally, the big controversy before the season started. They had 3 QBs there. Who was going to be the starter? They started Warren. He went 11 of 14 for 122 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. All right. So I saw today that they are benching him permanently. He is no longer the starter for the Michigan Wolverines, and it will now be Alex. How do you say his last name?
I think it's Orgy.
He is now going to be the starter for the Michigan Wolverines. And I don't think it matters, right? The only thing that saved them in this game was their running back Mullings. He had 153 yards, 2 touchdowns. Donovan Edwards, he had his best showing of the year, and he only had 82 yards on 17 carries. I'm not saying that's bad, but he's had a very porous start to his
draft stock way down.
Yeah, he's not looking good, and I think everybody expected him to be the next Blake Corum there, and he is not. But I just want to bring that up because I thought that was pretty big news. So maybe Michigan turns a corner now because their quarterback is about as bad as DJ from Florida State. So if you walk in right now and you throw 3 interceptions against Arkansas State, I promise you, I don't care if you're the number 1 draft pick going into I don't care who you are. You're never playing football again. I promise you. I promise you, I don't care what quarterback you are. If you go on and throw 3 interceptions against a team like that, you're 100% getting benched. So
yeah, I mean that's not great. Yeah, that's a tough one for Michigan as they're having so much, so there's so many issues after the season in which they won the national championship. So, and it's not just that they lost some guys, they lost their head coach, they lost their starting quarterback, starting running back, other pieces. It's just like they're crumbling apart, and you see the struggle. But I'm glad you brought it up. Florida State is now 0-3. Yes, you heard me. 0-3 on the season, and they lost to Memphis at home 20-12, an American Athletic Conference team that in some people's eyes is a powerhouse school, but they get beat here. I mean, I called it last week. I said Memphis would get the win in our pick'em just because of how bad they're playing right now. And I will say it again. I don't think Florida State's going to have a chance to win a game unless you finally just man up and bench DJU. It's like you're talking about. He's led you to an 0-3 start. How many more chances are you going to keep giving him before, you decide to finally not pull the plug, but be like, hey, we're going to see what we got behind you and see if it's any better. I mean, this was a game where they were favored by 6.5. And, we talked about this before we got started here. It's not 100% on him, but when you only you threw for 200 yards, but only an interception.
Yes.
Yeah,
I 100% agree with you. I picked these guys to win, and you let me down. All right. I thought there was no way you guys were going 0-3, and they're miserable. Listen, it is 1,000,000%, 100,000 million gazillion percent half of DJ's fault. But it is no longer all of DJ's fault anymore. This team, guys, is terrible. Every aspect, I'm about to annihilate Florida State for a minute. Every aspect of them is awful. I mean, everything. Their top rusher had 30 yards on 4 carries. That was their run game. For the whole day. DJ had 9 carries for negative 16 yards. So it's not only bad enough that he's throwing interceptions, right? But he's literally losing yards for his team every time he tries to run the ball. He's terrible. Their top receiver had 99 yards. Like that was their biggest accomplishment of the day. Okay? Everything about this team is terrible. Their run game is terrible. DJ is terrible. He's been a quarterback for 20 years in college, and he can't figure out a new offense if you laid it out in front of him, right? Their wide receivers are terrible. Their linebackers are terrible. Their offensive line is terrible. Their defensive line is terrible. Their secondary is terrible. Their coaching's terrible. I actually have a quote on my phone. Their coach, Mike Norvell, right? That's his last name. He actually called these 3 teams that they lost to powerhouses. And then if you played them, you would start your season 0-3 too. This is the quote that I saw. That came from him. the audacity, right? Just take your loss like a man. Don't try to lay it down, right? You guys are just terrible. You guys had a really good season last year, right? And everyone thought you guys were going to be great again, including myself, because you guys got DJ, right? Not a terrible quarterback, has played fairly well most of his college career, fairly. I'm not going to say completely well, has played fairly well most of his college career. And then he comes in here and I don't even know. I don't even know.
I was about to say he's 56 of 99 for 666 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions through 3 games.
Like there's no offense being made there, and he's not helping, and the run game's not helping. So I mean, like, what do you do? Because I feel like yes, you're right. You need to bench him, but like, what about the rest of the team? Because they're not helping. If you can't throw a passing touchdown and your top running back, your starting running back is running for 30 yards a game, there's a real problem. There's a real problem here.
Yeah, I agree there. You know, and you look ahead to this week just a minute. You have the Cal Golden Bears.
You're losing.
That are 3-0, mind you, coming to Florida State, and you're only favored by 2. I'm surprised Florida State's favored in this game.
They're favored
by 2 points.
They just lost to Memphis and they're favored.
Over-under is 44.5. Give me Cal all day long. You know, Cal just comes off of 2 weeks ago. They knocked off Auburn. Not a great SEC team, but an SEC team where they forced Auburn to 5 turnovers and forced the Auburn quarterback to throw 4 interceptions and get benched for a redshirt freshman. You follow that up by beating San Diego State 31-10. San Diego State's usually a pretty decent team. And now you get the chance to go on the road to Florida State and get a win. Not to mention, this is their first year in the ACC. So conference game number 3 for Florida State as they started their season out with 2 straight conference games. My confidence isn't there in Florida State. I just don't see it until they can actually break through and get a win, which don't know what that's going to take. You know, if they lose this week, you have to go to SMU, another conference game, and then you got Clemson. I mean, the rest of their schedule just gets tougher. If you struggle with Memphis, Boston College, Georgia Tech, what are you going to do against Clemson, Miami, Notre Dame?
I don't know how DJU, for the love of all that is right, please bench DJU, please. You're 3 games in, and he's passed for a little over 600 yards, and he has more interceptions and turnovers than he does touchdowns in 3 games. He's played 3 full games and has more turnovers than he does touchdowns. Please, if you want to keep your coaching job, you will please bench this guy, because everyone on this team is on the hot seat right now. Every single person. Because this is, I don't think this might be this really might be the biggest story of college football because of what happened to Florida State last year, going 13-0 and getting gypped out of being in the college playoffs because their star quarterback was hurt. I think everybody knew that. They didn't get in because of that, and they were going to be the less entertaining team. I don't think that should matter. They went 13-0. They went undefeated. And now they come into this season, and they're 0-3. And like Caleb said, I think there is a real possibility that they go 0-13, that they don't win a single game. I think that's a real possibility, to be honest. I don't in the college football team. I don't think I've ever watched one actually never win a game. Like never ever win a game. Especially a big name school like Florida State, who was just ranked, number 10 at the game of the season. So I don't know what they need, but do it. Whatever it is, they need to do it.
Yeah. There's a lot of unhappy Florida State fans right now. And if you lose this week, I mean, I don't know where you go. Like,
Well, let me ask you a question. If you're Mike Norvell, right, why haven't you benched DJU yet? Why haven't you benched your quarterback who has barely over 600 yards in 3 games and more turnovers than touchdowns?
because you're probably paying him over $1 million in NIL money,
But I mean,
and you don't want to look like an idiot by benching an average quarterback that you paid too much for.
Yeah. Should you care about winning at this point, though?
That's a tough one. I mean, like, what do you do? Do you?
Because his job's going to be on the line, right?
Right. At what point is, yeah, we paid this guy, but I've got to turn the season around, or my job's on the line. Like, it's time to run somebody else out there and see what they can do.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if DJU doesn't start this game. I would not be surprised. I think the time for money making and all that. I think you just take it as a loss. You just take it. You just chalk it up as a loss because this bad. It's bad. I mean, it's really bad there in Florida State.
100%. So with that, we'll jump over to week 4. And let's see, where are we sitting currently with our standings in our pick'em? So I'm sitting at 16-14. We've got you at 15-15, sitting right at 500.
Whew.
We got Jordan is sitting in first place at 18-11. You've got Doug sitting at 17-13, tied for second, a 3-way tie for fourth place between myself, SIL 925's picks, and Josh from the Variety Sports Network, Roar Bacon at 16, all at 16-14. We got you in a 2-way tie for seventh between Baseball 4 Eeks picks. And so, I think the deciding factor between us last week, I went Memphis. You put your faith in Florida State. I think out of everybody in our pick'em, I was the only person that picked Washington State to get the win over Washington. Florida let me down.
Yeah.
That's the last time I'm trusting the Gators this season until they actually show they know how to play football. So
you're not wrong, because that was miserable. I mean, that really was a horrendous performance.
So we'll jump into it. The first pick of this week's pick'em, Virginia at Coastal Carolina. You have 3-0 Coastal Carolina, 2-1 Virginia. Virginia is favored by 3 in this game. Over under 54.5. Feelings on this game?
I don't know. I think last time I picked Virginia, I think they let me down. So I think I took that L. So I'm gonna go the opposite way. I'm gonna go Coastal Carolina. I'm gonna take the underdog. I like the name, Coastal Carolina. Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna go with Coastal Carolina. I don't know what kind of game that's gonna be. I probably won't even know it's on. But I'm not. I'm switching it up. Virginia let me down last time, I'm pretty sure. So
I was about to say Coastal Carolina's last 3 opponents at Jacksonville State, they won 55-27. W&M, I'm thinking that's William and Mary, 40-21, and on the road at Temple, they won 28-20. Virginia last week lost to Maryland 27-13, beat Wake Forest 31-30, and beat the Richmond Spiders 34-13. I think I'm with you there. Virginia struggled so far this season. I'm going Coastal Carolina in this one as well.
Don't even ask me. Don't even ask me on the next game.
So this next one, Dylan's already got his chosen. He's picking USC to beat Michigan in this game. Where
never pick Michigan.
You tell me earlier in the season, I think this is going to be actually, honestly, the opposite. I think Michigan's the better team here, and USC's struggling. Boy, was I wrong. And USC's looking good. Moss has them rolling. 607 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. They got their running back rolling. Marks, 171 yards, 3 touchdowns. This game is in the Big House. USC is favored by 5.5. But I'm right along with you there. I think there's so much unknown and inconsistency in Michigan right now for me to even, pick them to even stand a chance. I think USC comes in and wins this game. By how much, I don't know. But until Michigan can kind of get things settled out at their quarterback spot, that you don't really know what to expect right now.
Yeah, I'm going to say USC wins by at least 10. Michigan is so – and I'm not saying this because I'm an Ohio State fan and I absolutely hate Michigan and I hope they lose every season. I hope they never win another game again. I'm not just saying it because of that. There's a lot of unorganization. I mean, a lot. I mean, you didn't even know who your starting quarterback was till like the day before you guys were starting, like you start your college football season. And then now you already have to switch. You're 3 games in, coming into your 4th game, and you already have to switch QBs because the QB play is so horrendous. Your number 1 running back has basically taken the number 2 spot again against a guy, he probably shouldn't be number 2 against. So he's underperformed. I would just say, like you said, Michigan, I won't say they're in shambles just yet, but there is just so much dysfunction going on right now. And I don't want to blame all of it on what happened before the season, but I kind of think maybe that kind of is taking a little bit of an effect. And then obviously losing all your best players doesn't help either. But yeah, I can't take Michigan for that reason and, others, but I would have to say, I think me and you both agreed. I mean, I didn't think USC was going to be this good. So, yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Yeah, USC wins, I think.
Yeah. Next up, you have the Rutgers Scarlet Knights heading to Virginia Tech to take on the Hokies. Another team where this is a 3-point. Virginia Tech's favored by 3 here. Another team that let me down. The Virginia Tech Hokies, I had them beating Vanderbilt on the road, and they struggled to do that. This one's a tough one. Virginia Tech's 2-1. You got Rutgers at 2-0. Looking at it, it's a 4.5 point game. And when you look at it, it is at home for Virginia Tech. This one's a tough one for me to look at here. But why not give me Rutgers going in to Virginia Tech and getting the win?
That's what I got. I also, like I said, I'm trying to switch it up a little bit. I'm pretty sure I had Virginia Tech last time and they let me down. So any team who's been let me down, I can't go with them again. All right. I started off 8-2 and now I'm 15-15. This has not been a kind 2 weeks to me. Okay. So yeah, I'm also have to go Rutgers. It seems all their best players basically have the same amount of stats. As far as touchdowns, interceptions, rushing yards, touchdowns, receiving yards, receptions, all that stuff. It seems like they're pretty similar teams in ways too. But I'm gonna have to go Rutgers, and I think they get the win here.
I was about to say, dating back to last year, not that it's the same team, but they got a win in their bowl game against Miami, 31-24 last season. So. Whereas, like we said, you have a Virginia Tech team that lost to Vanderbilt, beats Marshall 31-14 and Old Dominion 37-17. But I mean, those are your gimme games that you should win like that. You have Rutgers that beat Howard 44-7 and Akron 49-17. So they're taking care of business as well. This should be a good matchup to watch. But I'm with you there. I'm taking Rutgers in this one because I think they get the job done and get a big win for them on the road at Virginia Tech. As we move on to a team we talked about that was a little bit surprising this past week, you got Arizona State and Texas Tech. Arizona State is headed to Jones AT&T Stadium in Lubbock, Texas, where Texas Tech is favored by 3 in this one. They're 2-1. You got Arizona State 3-0. Initial thoughts on this game?
Taking Arizona State. I know it was a close game against Texas State, but they pull off the win. It seems like they're rolling pretty good. Like I said, I know against Texas State they didn't perform their best, but they still pull up the win. It seemed like they kept on pace as far as like offensive wise and defensively. So I think they keep it rolling here against Texas Tech. You know, they've been performing very well on offense. So I think they keep it rolling. And again, I chose Texas Tech last time, and they let me down. So I'm gonna have to go Arizona State here. I think they keep the ball rolling. I really do. I think they keep it rolling. Surprising 4-0 start. I'm calling.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Arizona State goes on the road and gets it done. You know, what makes this game interesting is if you look at it, Texas Tech's quarterback 3 games in the season has nearly thrown for 1,000 yards already. 974 passing yards, 10 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. So this is a high-flying Texas Tech offense. What they're known for, if you think about it back to, you know, they come out with that air raid system, that Mike Leach system that throw the ball a lot. But I'm going to go with you there. I think Arizona State gets off to a 4-0 start, gets the win over the Big 12 Texas Tech Raiders. What I think could be one of the best matchups of this weekend, you move on to the Utah Utes are taking on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, in which I think is just a preview of the Big 12 championship game right here. I mean, these are the 2 teams we talked about in our preseason shows that we thought would be right up there to potentially win the Big 12. You've got Utah coming in 3-0, Oklahoma State coming in at 3-0. You've got Utah favored by 2 on the road. And, you know, an interesting, we talked about this before the game. The 2 starting quarterbacks for these teams, the combined age between these guys is 49 years old. By comparison, the combined age of the starting quarterback between the Bears and the Colts, so Anthony Richardson and Caleb Williams, is 44. Both guys are seventh year seniors in Cam Rising and Alan Bowman. 25 years old for Cam Rising, 4 years old for Alan Bowman. Cam Rising previously at Texas in his career. Alan Bowman previously at Texas Tech and Michigan. Thoughts on the battle of the old quarterbacks?
I'm going to take Utah here. I think Oklahoma State has struggled a little more, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Arkansas. I'm not. But that was a game that they should have lost. They shouldn't be 3-0. They should be 2-1. They really struggled that game. Alec Gordon has struggled a little bit, I feel like, this season. And I don't think Oklahoma State is as good as I think people thought they were, including myself. And it seems like Cam Rising in Utah, they play well, but it seems like in the big games and the big moments, they step up really well, especially Cam Rising. He's never afraid, I feel like, to take that extra step, go that extra mile, no matter what it was. I mean, look at USC last year. You know, there was a couple times they played USC, came down to the wire, and he made smart, concentrated, good plays. So I'm going to take Utah here. I think it's a close game, probably a one-score game here, but I'm going to take Utah for the win.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Utah here. They usually, like you said, show up in the big games, especially defense. Utah is very underrated defensively, I feel like, in, you know, what they do. You know, as much as it would be better for my Razorbacks to have Oklahoma State to win this game, I'm going to take Utah as well. You know, it's just I've lost some confidence in Oklahoma State, and, you know, with them struggling. Yes, they got the win over Tulsa like they should have. You know, I was surprised at how close our game was with them. And so I think this could set up the Big 12. You know, whoever wins this game has a, you know, good spot to see almost setting themselves up to be in that Big 12 championship game. We jump over to the next matchup of this week. You have TCU and SMU, 2 schools down in Texas. This as at Gerald Ford Stadium, home game for SMU down in Dallas. TCU favored by 2.5 in this game, where they came off a last-minute loss to UCF in a game we picked last week. And last minute they give up this game. Is this another one where SMU gets your vote after TCU lets you down?
No, I'm going to have to take TCU in this one. I'm going to stay on this boat. I know, I like you said, I know they had last minute heartbreaking loss or whatever, but their offense is high flying, almost like Texas Tech. Except for their quarterback Hoover, 83, 119 for over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns, no turnovers. That's huge. I mean, you're coming in your 4th game, you don't have a single interception, so that just means you're taking very good care of the ball. Their running back, 44 carries, 174 yards. Obviously, you would like to see a little more yardage from your running back going into 4 games, but he also has 4 touchdowns. So, I mean, can't be upset with that. But it seems like SMU, their quarterback, not so much on the high fly train. 29 of 51, 342 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception.
And he's not even the guy that is originally supposed to be their starter. Preston Stone was supposed to be the starting quarterback for this SMU team. So
it's
I'm right there with you. I think TCU, they come off this heartbreaking loss last week to UCF. I think they come back ready to get back in the winning column here. Like you said, that Hoover's play has just been incredibly good this season, has taken care of the ball, limits his turnovers. Yes, you'd like to see some more yardage out of Cook, but 4 touchdowns, talked about being efficient there. So I think TCU goes on the road and gets it done. So we're in agreement there. We almost don't even have to talk about this next game because we've already hashed this one out a lot. I think we're both going to take the Cal Golden Bears to go on the road and beat Florida State and make them have an 0-4 start to their season.
And the fact that anybody can pick these guys to win is actually I'm surprised 29% of people have picked them. That's or 25%. That's actually astounding that people are still picking Florida State.
Yeah, 100%. I agree there. We'll move on. You have the Toledo Rockets and the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. You had Toledo coming off beating Mississippi State 41-17. So not just squeaking out a win against an SEC team, but winning pretty handily. Another guy, their quarterback Gleason, taking care of the ball, 662 yards and 9 touchdowns to no interceptions on the season. You have TJ Finley for Western Kentucky transferred over from previously at Texas State, and then before that was at Auburn. 490 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions on the season. Not great. You have Shaw for Western Kentucky, or Toledo, 137 yards, 3 touchdowns on the season. Western Kentucky, or Toledo's favored in this game. It is a home game for Western Kentucky, but I'm going with the Toledo Rockets here to continue their hot streak so far and move to 4-0.
I'm also taking Toledo. Yep.
I was about to say Western Kentucky has just really struggled this season. They opened the season with a loss to Alabama 63-0. They beat Eastern Kentucky 31-0, Middle Tennessee State 49-21. But I think Toledo's resume has just been much better this season, and it seems like their offense is getting things done. And especially with that win last week over Mississippi State, just shows that they have the chance to do some decent things this season. As we move on, one of the bigger SEC matchups this week, you have number 6 Tennessee taking on number 15 Oklahoma. On the road in Oklahoma, Tennessee favored by 7. We've seen this high-flying offense that, they won 71-0 this past week. You see Oklahoma, they've struggled some this season against Tulane. They barely beat Houston. I'm taking Tennessee in this one. I'm surprised to see that the spread's not more, but from what I've seen from Tennessee and their quarterback Nico, they've got a pretty good offense. They haven't scored under 50 points this entire season, winning 69-3 their first game, 51-10 over a ranked NC State, and then 71-0 over Kent State. Whereas look at Oklahoma. You beat Temple 51-3. Okay, great. You beat Houston 16-12. And then you only beat Tulane 34-19. It doesn't seem like, we've talked about they're not known for being an offensive team. Brett Venables, he's a defensive guy. but I think this Tennessee team is going to be too much for them to handle.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think Tennessee is just a much more high-flying offense. The fact that your quarterback is your leading rusher on the season too, that's not going to carry over well. You're just asking for an injury to happen. I mean, your quarterback cannot be the leading rusher all year long. There are some guys who are special enough to do that, but that's a special few. I'm not saying he's not one of them, but I don't see how that's productive at all. You have running backs for a reason. Obviously, they're not being productive enough. So that, to me, that makes Oklahoma more of a one-dimensional team. It seems like Tennessee is high-flying on all sides of the ball, and there's a reason why Tennessee is ranked number 6 and Oklahoma is ranked number 15. There's obviously a skill gap there, and like you said, Tennessee's been high-flying, and I think they keep that streak going, and I think they stay high-flying.
100% agree there. Now, final game of the week, you have the Iowa Hawkeyes headed to Minneapolis to take on the Golden Gophers of Minnesota. Iowa favored by 2.5 in this game. We know what this Iowa team is historically in the past, known for not scoring many points, having very tough defense. So far this season, they beat Illinois State 40-0. They lost last minute to their rival Iowa State 20-19. And they beat Troy last week 38-21. Minnesota, on the other hand, loses a tough game on the road or at home versus North Carolina week 1. Bounces back against Rhode Island 48-0, beats Nevada last week 27-0. Initial thoughts on this game: does Iowa get it done here, or does Minnesota get the home win in a game that's projected to be an even game, a toss-up here, if you will?
I'm going to take Iowa. We know what Iowa is, right? Iowa's a super defensive team. They always have good defense. Always. They always have a good defensive team. If they can just get some sort of offense going, just anything, they could win a lot of their games because every team they play, I'm not saying they don't get blown out sometimes, but I would say majority of the time it's usually a low scoring game. They have a really good defense, right? I think they get it done. I'm not saying they're able to put up 40 points like they did in their first. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think they get a little bit of offense going, and I think their defense stays true to what it is. Holds Minnesota to a low score. It's still probably going to be a one-score game, but I think Iowa's offense does just enough to take over Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm agree with you there. I think I'm going to take Iowa as well. I think all they need to do to be successful in this game is turn around and hand the ball off to Johnson, 61 carries, 479 yards, and 6 touchdowns on the season. Glad to see you're going with the former Michigan quarterback in Cade McNamara to win the game.
Yeah.
526 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So not the greatest season so far, but if they can rely on that run game, I think that's where they're going to see their success at.
That's what happens when you play for Michigan. Not a great season so far. They're hand in hand. No, I mean, Iowa's one of those teams, man. If they could just do what they did their first game all year long, they'd be really hard to beat because their defense is so good. They just have zero amount of offense, like none. It's non-existent. There's nothing there, So, they're known for low-scoring games. I just think. Like I said, I think they just do just enough to overtake Minnesota.
I agree. The only other games that I really want to talk about this week, when you look at it, we kind of hit on, Michigan, USC, a ranked game. Surprising to see Michigan still ranked. For me, it starts Friday. You've got number 24 Illinois versus number 22 Nebraska. In Nebraska, in Lincoln, Dylan Raiola, a.k.a. Minnie Mahomes, taking the field, trying to lead this Nebraska team to a 4-0 start. I think this has the chance to be a big game on Friday of week 4.
Yeah, I agree. I think, listen, Illinois is good, right? But I don't think they're anything spectacular. I really don't. The real reason that they're ranked is because they beat Kansas, and Kansas was a mediocre ranked team in the first place. I'm not trying to put down Illinois, right? I live here. I'm not trying to put them down. I just don't think they're that good. I just don't think they're that good, right? Nebraska is something else. They're ranked 22. They got Minnie Mahomes. That guy is unbelievable, dude. Some of the plays that he makes is just outlandish. I think they go in there and get it done. It's probably a good game. It really is. It seems like Illinois' defense is pretty sound, right? So I'm more worried about their offense being able to get in there and put up some points or maybe try to keep up with Nebraska. But I think Nebraska gets it done. I would say more than likely it's going to be a one-score game, but I would not run it by me if Nebraska goes in there and absolutely takes care of business. That would not surprise me either.
Yeah, I agree. Another game I'm interested to see just to see how they do the rest of the season. Another Illinois team, Northern Illinois. Some action going on against Buffalo. They're ranked 23rd after their big win over Notre Dame. They had a bye week last week. So let's see what the Huskies can do the rest of the season as they take on Buffalo. Hampton, quarterback for NIU, 526 yards, 6 touchdowns on the season. Can they keep it rolling and have a successful season in the MAC? And who knows, maybe they can get ranked high enough to potentially be in the college football playoff, even though that would be unfortunate because they'd be having to play some tough teams. But to see a team like that succeed and get up there would be interesting.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see if they can, like you said, if they can keep the ball rolling. They just came off a big win. Again, they had that big win against Notre Dame. So it'd be interesting, that gets them ranked. See if they can keep it.
Can they hold on to it?
I'm going to say no, but you never know. I mean, I didn't think that, Notre Dame was going to lose to Northern Illinois either. So yeah, I mean, it's that'll be an interesting team to watch to see if they can just kind of keep the motions moving and grooving after a big win.
Yeah, I agree 100% there. That's been week 3 and week 4 talk this week. Get ready for another great weekend of college football. I can't wait. And, if you haven't, go check out the Variety Sports Network. Hit that like and subscribe button. They put out a lot of great content, whether you're an NFL fan, NASCAR fan, baseball fan, they have it all. Go check them out. You'll find a show that's for you. And we'll be back here next week to talk about week 4 and any potential upsets or excitement that happens. Until then, have another good weekend watching college football. I'm Caleb. This is Dylan from the Variety Sports Network here on Saturday Showdown.